Okay, so one of the advantages for us in working inside Maya, one of the things we need to really think about is how we can create shapes. So we've talked about using our primitive shapes, distorting them, doing bouillons, extruding out of them, right? Another way we can create more organic or fluid shapes is by using uh, curves, okay? And so let me explain to you exactly what a curve is. Curve's a little different. So we have polygons, right? And if I come back to polygon, I just want to explain this to you so you don't get confused. You know, we have vertices in here, and when we go to move a section of vertices, the rest of the object stays, okay? Well, there's another type of typology that usually I don't introduce or talk about because it's not really used as much in the industry. DreamWorks was using it, now they've switched over to using polygonal geometry, as most people have. And that other area was called surfaces. And the differences in here with what we call a NURB surface, all right? A NURB typology is sometimes you can make really fascinating shapes very quickly, but what's cool about it, when I go to grab a set of vertices here, look at what happened when I pull that. The surface stays interactive with it. You see that? And so there's a difference here where the geometry pulled out separate, and here, okay, it didn't do that. So here you can see when I'm moving one side, it's affecting the other side. Okay, now we're not going to use these in this class, but the difference is that a NURBS curve is the same thing. This is made up of a series of curves in there, and then we tell it to create the surfaces between those curves. And that's what I wanted to explain, because if we come over here and if I create a curve, so if I come under, I drop down and I just hit that tab right there for curves, and if I select this and draw a curve right there, when I go to look at, if I right click on this and tell it to go to control vertices right now, notice what happens when I move a curve. See, it's sort of bending the others. And so that's sort of cool because now I could grab a couple of these, use like my scale tool, and if I scale it in, I can make a neat looking shape like that, okay? Whenever I go to grab two separate vertices, and if I pinch them together with two other vertices like this, it's going to start to create like a hard little edge, okay, on an object there, right? So what's pretty neat is I can move these vertices around and I can make like a really interesting shape like this, okay? So I could have a totally different shape like that. And now let's say I wanted to take that shape and I wanted to loft it somehow, okay, to create like, you know, an interesting engine shape for your rocket chair, okay? So what I can do is go back over here, go to object mode, select that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it up at 90 degrees. So I'm going to hold down shift when I go to rotate, that way I can see it rotating perfectly. Put this at 90, and then let me turn it the other direction to the camera so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm basically going to be telling the computer, hey, I'm going to start with this shape right about here, and it's going to be a lot smaller. And then this shape's going to, from here, it's going to grow, and when I get over here, I'm going to, let's say I would decide to enlarge it a little bit more. Okay, and then it's going to get a little bit smaller, so I might come back to that outline, put it there, and then it might go back to about there, and then when it comes down and ends, it's going to end about right here and get even a little bit smaller. Okay, so you need to think about what I call the cross sections of your element, or if you were to take like a fuselage of a vehicle or whatever, or a part, imagine if you could cut it in half with a knife, you would create the cross section, right? So you need to think about what the cross sections of the object might be. And then all we have to do is we have to go in and tell the computer, we select the direction from the start, and then we select an order by holding shift. And then I just going to go tell the computer to basically fill that in with material. Okay, now to do that, I need to come down here, and it's going to be helpful if you come over here and drop from polygon submenus down to the surface submenu. And then after you do that, you come over here, and I go to surfaces here, okay, and I have the option to extrude, loft, and revolve right in there. Okay, all right, so I'm going to come over here, I'm going to go to loft, and it's at chord length, section spans 1. Now down here under the options, if I hit nerves, it's going to do it as a NURB piece of geometry, okay? But I can select polygons here, and then when I select polygons, there's another menu down below here that even gives me the option to put it on count. So if I put this on count right now, I can actually control the thickness of what's going through there. So let's put it on, let's like do 500. That's going to be a lot of vertices. If I hit apply, do you see how green that is and how nice and smooth that is? Well, I don't have to have it super smooth right now because I can use my 1 to 3 buttons, right? My smooth option. So what I can do is maybe 500 is way too much. Let's go down here and try 75. Hit apply. There I have that shape, but when I hit 3 now, I can see what that shape looks like if I were to smooth it, okay? And the great thing is since it's a polygon object, I can go back into it then and I can fill that hole if I want to. I can put more edges in there. I can move the vertices around and I can modify it even further, okay? After you create an object, there is still history attached with this object and the curves. So if I come over now and select a curve and I move that curve, do you see what it's doing? It's affecting the object because there is history that's still there. Even if I go in and select the vertices of that particular object, see, even the vertices, if I adjust those independently, those are still going to manipulate the shape of the object as well, which is sort of cool because it allows you to create a shape really quick, and then it allows you to not only move the vertices back and forth or scale them around, it also enables me to get in there, in object mode, allow me to move the curves around, that then I can also select the vertices and move those. So look, I can select all of these right here, right click on them, go to control vertices, and then I can select all the upper vertices like this. I didn't do it. Let me get them all like that. Missed one. There and there. Now I can select all the upper vertices and see, and I can move them all down and see what it did to my object there. It totally changed the flow of my object, which is pretty cool because you have a history attached there. Now, if I decide that's what I don't want, I just want to leave the shape the way that it is, I select the object, I go up under edit, and just like with the lattices, I'm going to say delete by type history. Once I delete that history, this object is no longer connected to those curves anymore. Okay? So the benefit of doing that is what I can do is I could come in here and I could take a base circle like this, and let's say I had a hose that was going down from an engine, or let's say I have, some type of a bend in my rocket chair. I could come in here and I could take that little circular curve, I could duplicate it, move it along to here. I could duplicate it, take the next one, start to turn it a little bit, and then what's cool, if I hit Shift D, boom, boom, Maya is going to follow the last couple patterns that I did, okay, in terms of the increments. So there where it turned, now what I can do is, let's say I got it to turn to there, okay, now I can turn this back to negative 180, let's see what it, there, and now I can make that go straight down. Hit Control D, and then there it goes, and like that. So now I can select those in order, and I'm going to basically would create that shape right there. So if I select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that, hit apply, there's that little tube. But you'll notice every now and then I get that little bend on there. So sometimes when you put too many of those in a line, you get a little bit of a quirky little curve in there. So there's another option that allows you to get a little bit straighter line. What we can do to get that straight line is we can take that circular curve and we can tell it to extrude along what we call a path line. So I'm going to show you how to do that really quick so you can avoid this little, see when you look at that, if I move that out, you're like, well, wait a minute, it was straight here. Why is it doing that? Well, that's just something that Maya does, and it's a pain in the butt, okay? So what we can do is I could come over here. I already have a curve that's created right here, okay? I'm going to duplicate that and move it over here so you can see it, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that line, that curve, with what's called the EP curve tool. If I come over here under curves again and I look and I hold my cursor, you'll see this tool right here that has little red dots and it's a line. That's the EP curve tool. I can come then from a top view or a side view and I can plot and make my curve wherever I want it to go. And then when the curve's done, I could take that circle, select the curve, and then I'm going to tell it to extrude its shape along that curve, which is another huge benefit for me. So watch, let me show you how I'm going to do that, right? Let's say I have, let me hide this right here so I don't confuse you. And come up here, EP curve tool. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to start selecting a curve. And now I'm going to start to put a bend in my curve. And if you get lots of bends, you might want to put a couple more little dots in between there to support the bend that's happening. Versus, you know, if I come up here and round this real quick and then just go straight, the straight's easy. I can just have a long shoot like that. You see that? But the problem is now I see that little arc in the bend. That's going to show in the geometry. So what I need to do is I can adjust that. If I right click on it, go to control vertices, I can come in here and I could slide a couple vertices around to get that to get a nice even flow in there. You see how I did that? And if I grab the wrong vertice, it's going to let me know because it's going to overlap. Okay, so once I get that nice sort of flow in there like that, what I can do is I can come over here. Now I need to look. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it with my eye. When I was pushing down, tapping down the little vertices, this one bends up here a little bit more. So I might come over here and select these and move them up just a teeny bit more. Select those and just get it nice and straight. Okay, so now it comes here and it curves and it wraps. So what I do then is I'm going to come over here, go back to object mode, okay? Select the curve that you have, the circular curve you created. Select the EP curve path, okay? Come back over here. We're under surfaces. Go back to surfaces and we're going to go to extrude this time. Open up the option box and make sure you have this selected here at path. Okay, if you don't, you'll have it at profile and you'll get something, well, it will happen to work there, but I'm telling it to extrude along a path. Sometimes you get these weird options where it doesn't quite extrude correctly, but usually if I say I want it to be a tube, I want it to go at path, and then I could even tell it I want it to be a polygonal shape, right? Which means it's going to offer me count. We don't want to use triangles or general. Put it on count or quads. Okay, quads I like because that means I have 4 sides, okay, to every shape. Triangles are going to be 3, and if I get one of those 3 points that bend, it'll create an inflection in the geometry and it doesn't look right. That's why we use 4-sided objects, okay, quads. And then let's say under count here, I'm going to hit apply right now, and as you can see, that length of it, 75, is not enough for me to create that shape. So let's go over here, let's just type in, let's say I put in 200 right now, and I hit apply. There, now I'm getting the shape that's happening, and when I hit the smooth tool, you can see what it looks like. It's holding its shape together, okay? So that's an option for me. Now here, let me Command Z and go back. You got to be careful of this. So if I came in here and I typed in 1000 right now, it's going to do it, but look at how heavy it is. Do I need 1,000 vertices in there right now? Probably not. It'll smooth really nice. I mean, look at how smooth that is. It looks good, right? But I don't need to go that high. And so if I Command Z and go back, you know, I can pull this off with probably like 175 vertices. Hit apply. Uh-oh. Hold on. I made a mistake. I didn't have that selected. Oh, I did 1,000 again. Let me Command Z again. There we go. Let's go back and put this to 175. There we go. Hit apply. And so even though that's really rough when I go to smooth, so that's not quite. I think I need to go back to 200 then. So that's fine. I try to cheat it. Always try to get it lower, because the lower my model is, the better modeler I am. Okay, so I try to keep that in mind whenever I'm working. And then when I smooth that, that holds its shape pretty good. Okay, it'll be rough like that when I'm really looking at the polygonal shape, and when I hit 3, and if I render that mental ray, it'll keep it nice and round. Okay, but now look at that tube I just created, right? Let me move the tube over a little bit. Look at what happens if I select the curve. I right click on the curve and I go to control vertices. What do we still have in here? We still have history attached to it. So I could select parts of this, and if I move this, it's going to affect the curve. That's pretty cool, because now if you didn't get the curve quite in the position you wanted it to, you just go ahead and slide that line over, and then you start adjusting, and it's going to affect the curve for you. So I might decide, you know what, I wanted this to feel like it was sort of a whipping effect here, so I might need to take this little vertice, push it up, pull it out a little bit more, and then pull this one up a little bit more, and now I definitely have more of that whipping effect that I wanted for my hose. When I'm done with that, I'm going to select the mesh, the geometry, and go to Edit, Delete by Type, and go to History. Okay? Let me give you a little piece of advice on something that Phil does when I work. After I create that shape, I don't delete I could select this and delete it. I don't. Give me a second here. Usually when I work, I have a little plane like this, my ground plane I'm working on, right? After I make a shape that I want, like this, I'll give you a little hint that'll save you some time. I select the curve and the path, and I just move it down underneath. Now you see when I go to move it, they separate. The reason why they separate is because of the history involved. Okay? So what I can do, let me see if I group it and move it. There. So I've grouped it, and what I did is I dropped it under my ground plane. That way if I'm modeling later and I go, oh, I need to make a second hose, or oops, I deleted that hose I made, I don't have to go back and then find the exact diameter. I just look under my ground plane right like this, and look at what I have sitting down there waiting for me. My old curve. It's still there. I can reuse it 100 more times to my advantage. So if I came over here and if I'm modeling something that I really like, so let's say I want to close that hole, I right click on edge, select the edge there, I come to the back, select another edge, and then I could come back over here, I go back to polygons, and there's an option here under edit mesh called fill hole, or maybe it's under mesh now. There it is. And once I fill that hole and I smooth it, now you can see what my object looks like smooth. Okay? So I could create some really interesting shapes, and then since this is still a polygonal object, I can even come in here, I can insert edge loops. Okay? I can even grab faces and start to extrude faces out. So if I grab that one and that one, this is really cool because this is how you can start making like aircraft and stuff. Wait a minute, I'm getting lost there. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. I didn't select that one. They're not equal sided. That's okay. But let's say if I wanted to extrude a fin out of there or something, right? I can now. Oh, I selected something in the back. That's okay. Let's see when I smooth it. See, I can create all kinds of interesting new shapes that are organic based off of that. Okay? All right. So those are the first two. The first one was lofting, taking a bunch of circles, moving them through, connecting them. The next one was taking a circle and extruding it along a path. I want to show you one more thing that's called a revolve. It uses the same tool, which is the EP curve tool, and it allows you to make like a rocket engine or anything that's a cup, as long as you think about it like this. I'm going to show you how to use the tool and then explain how to think about it. Imagine if you were going to take something and spin it, like if you were in a pottery class and you're working on a piece of clay, right? The clay is spinning on a wheel and you're holding the edge. In Maya, we can create the edge and tell it to circle in 360 degrees and create a shape really quick, and let me show you exactly how that works. I have a let me take this other stuff here and hide it so it doesn't confuse you guys. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to take this curve right here that I created. I'm going to go back over this, so bear with me for a second. I'm going to go down over here back to surfaces right here. Under surfaces, I'm going to go to revolve. And it's like a revolver. It revolves 360 degrees. And I could adjust by the axes. So look at what happens when I hit Y right now and I hit apply. I just told it to spin in a circle and create that geometry for me based off of that curve. And what's cool is that I can move the pivot points here. And I could adjust, it'll create a different object based off of that. If I hit insert, drag that point to the edge right here, it's now going to spin 360. So I hit insert in my keyboard to move that pivot point. Now watch what happens when I hit apply. See how I created that? Okay. And here's another, I'll go back over this. Here's a cool thing is that guess what? There's still history attached. So if I want to get in there and, oops, and really modify, oh come on, my hotkeys are, if I want to get in there now and modify that shape, you see how I can do that really quick? That's pretty neat, right? I can use that curve to modify how that shape exists. So I can start creating some pretty fantastic shapes like that. Now let me go back, let me hit Command Z. I told that to flip at the Y-axis. I also have an X-axis. that doesn't really make any sense, right, to flip it that way. What happens if I put it on Z? Oh, that's different. Yeah. Make my own, yeah. It's a great way, but you have to be able to think about the cross-section of an object. So let me create a new object. This is how I did that. You just go to Curves. Go to EP Curve Tool. If you want to do it exactly, sometimes I just look down. If you want to get it exact, hit your keyboard. This is where you might go to Top View, right here. Now I'm looking down, and I might come back here. Look, I take EP Curve Tool. I'm going to start right here. Boom. I'm going to think about the object. So the benefit is if I draw this on a piece of paper and think about what I want to create, and then imagine if I took a knife and cut through it, what would that curve look like? Does that make sense? So if I pre-plan it on paper, it would make sense. So here, I'm just going to come in here, and I'm just going to round a little object and just make something that looks like maybe this is part of my rocket engine, let's say. Let me get that last, there we go. So after I create my line, you're always usually going to have to come back to Control Vertices, and you have to move a couple of these around just to get it nice and smooth, let's say. Okay? So once I get that curve nice and smooth and there's no areas overlapping each other, right? What I can do then, go back to Perspective View. So I can see the curve I just created. Okay, I can't see it there. I'm going to bring it up above my ground plane. Okay, so there's that curve. Now I'm going to come over here and I need to decide how I want to flip it. Now I have a personal preference. I like to flip it vertically so it's sitting in front of me so I can see it spin sort of like on the x-axis. So what I'm going to do is, hold on a minute, I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to rotate this exactly at a 90. Just personal preference. I like to see it this way. Now, if I revolve it around that center point, where's the center right now? It's in the middle. So look at what happens. Uh-oh. I was on Z. See what it did? It revolved around the middle because I have the pivot points right in the middle. So if I come over here and if I hit Insert on my keyboard and I move that point to right here on the end, that's going to be the center of the object now. So now when I tell it, see how it revolved around that? So I just created the shell of a rocket engine right there if I want. Or a little miniature part, whatever your little mind can think of. Okay, so watch what happens now. Now I'm going to grab that center point and move it further out. So what's going to happen now? Can you guess when I hit Revolve after I move that out here? I'll have a hole in the middle. That's right, because look at what's going to happen. See that? But what's really cool is you can create bases real quick, circular shapes, rims, stuff like that. You can modify things really quickly like that, okay? And again, just like before, look at the difference. Look at how rough that is. Okay, when I select on that as a poly, that's pretty low res. When I go to smooth, it smooths really nice. So I have that option in the Revolve options where I could tell it to be, actually, my bad here. Let me back up. I realized it was on nerves. That was my mistake. I'm going to put it on polygons right now. After polygons, I'm going to scroll down. There's count. Here, I'm going to put this at like 100 vertices. And when I hit apply right now, look at how rough that shape is, right? But when I hit 3, voila. It's nice and round and smooth. Okay? So that's pretty cool. That's another additive feature for you to use. Okay? And then again, if you're done with it, you like the geometry that you have, you come over here and you can say edit. Okay? And you can say delete by type history. And now there's no more history attached. I need to center the pivot back to the object. And there's my new object I just created really quickly from that Revolve. Okay? The last thing I wanted to show you guys today, which I didn't mention last time, is I want to show you how to combine two pieces of mesh. So you see how I have this piece of geometry right here? Let's say I want to combine that. I'm going to duplicate this, go to inverse, I'm going to flip it upside down like this. Let's say this is going to be a rocket engine that I'm going to make. And then let's say I decide I want to bring these vertices down. Let me close that window. Say I bring these vertices down, I have two different shapes like this. I want to merge these two into one piece of geometry. So I'm going to show you how I do that. This is what you do is I try to get those vertices as close as possible. A great way to do that is the scale tool. I select both sets here. Okay, right click, go to vertice mode, select the vertices. I'm going to take the scale tool and I'm going to scale them together so they're pretty close together like that. Okay, after that's done, I'm going to select the top one, it doesn't matter what order, either one. I'm going to go down over here, back to polygonal modeling, and I'm going to tell it to combine, to make it into one piece of geometry. Even though I've combined it, those vertices still have two separate edges that are not together. So what I can do really quick is I could go in there and select the vertices and tell them to combine, and it'll create one edge then wrapping around. So to do that, it's this easy. I'm going to right click on it. You can see both edges in there right now. Do you see them? If I right click and I go to vertice, and I'm going to come over here, I'm going to start with this outside vertice right here. So I'm going to select that vertice, and if I come back under the polygon menu, I have two options. Where's the hot? I used to have a hotkey for it. Right here, there's a little tab here that says Merge Vertices, right? Or I could come up over here under Mesh, and I think it's under there as well. I prefer that little hotkey tab. You just hold your cursor over it. It's right there. It's called Merge Vertices. So I select two vertices, and I hit that, and see it just snap them together. Then I can just go around my circle right now and do each one of them individually really quickly. Okay? That's weird. It did something really weird there. Make sure you don't select through and grab something else through like that. So once I do this, if I keep going through right now, that's weird. It did something really weird right there, and I don't know why it did that. I'll figure that out later. But anyway, if I go through and do that, maybe there's still history on my objects, and I need to delete them. That could be why it's messing up. But if you go through and basically do that, you can connect two pieces of polygon together, and you can create one object. But you don't really need to worry about that right now. What's really important is that you can use extrusion, you can use the Revolve tool, and you could extrude along the path, and then also use just the curves themselves, and use that as an option to create lots of new shapes. Okay? All right, so again, to find that, that's just surfaces. Click under there, you have Revolve, you have Loft, and Extrude. Okay, those are the three I sort of wanted to cover with you. All right? So that's it. Have fun. We'll stop the recorder right here.